Why bruised feelings may have burned a bridge in Copenhagen. What China's premier says about politics and politeness. Federal regulators are adding a dose of reality to clean up efforts for the Kingston coal ash spill. Plus, the U.S. auto industry and U.S. workers will get a boost from a Korean battery manufacturer.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
And good Monday morning. I'm Tyler Suiters in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this 15th day of March 2010. China's premier says he skipped meetings of world leaders in Copenhagen back in December because China was snubbed. Premier Wen Jiabao told a Beijing news conference he was never formally invited to a late-night leaders session before the conference's last day and before President Obama himself arrived. Now, Wen says that he learned of the session only at a formal dinner with the Queen of Denmark that evening. During the final day, Wen sent lower-level officials to hours of meetings at which world leaders, including President Obama himself, hammered out the text that eventually became the Copenhagen Accord. Officials for both the U.S. and Europe have criticized Wen's absence. They say China watered down the final agreement. That accord was finalized only late on Friday when Obama met with Wen and the heads of India, Brazil, and South Africa as well. Wen says China had received no explanation for the snub so far, and he says he is baffled as to why officials in the U.S. and Europe continue to claim that China obstructed any larger deal. Wen says China worked with other nations to get the Copenhagen Accord, and it is committed to its pledges to combat climate change. With that in mind, top scientists in Australia now say they have significant evidence that climate change is real. The Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, along with the Bureau of Meteorology, they say that temperatures across Australia have risen about 0.7 of a degree Celsius over the last 50 years. The joint State of the Climate report also shows that sea levels are rising up to 0.4 of an inch per year around Australia's north and west, and that rainfall in the country is sharply higher in some regions and lower in others. Australian leaders are pushing a carbon trading system to fight the effects of climate change, but that plan was defeated 2 separate times last year. Undersea volcanoes could be a secret weapon in the fight against climate change. A study published in the latest issue of Nature Geoscience shows for the first time that volcanoes hold a key that turns the world's oceans into carbon sinks. French and Australian researchers tell Reuters they have pinpointed the volcanoes as key sources of iron, a major nutrient for single-celled plants that soak up CO2. Those plants, phytoplankton, are at the bottom of the undersea food chain. They soak up the CO2 when they bloom, and when they die or when they're eaten, the GHGs are locked away for centuries. Scientists are still unsure, however, exactly how climate change will affect the total amount of iron making it to the ocean's surfaces around the world. Back here in the U.S., Consol Energy says it is acquiring Dominion Resources Appalachian exploration and production business, a multi-billion-dollar deal. The coal and natural gas company says the nearly $3.5 billion deal will substantially increase its natural gas reserves and production capacity. Dominion's exploration and production business is one of the oldest and the most active drillers in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Consol has operations in West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Utah. Federal regulators now say it is technologically impossible to remove all the coal ash from the Emory River in Tennessee, and that means an undetermined amount of coal ash will remain even after the cleanup ends there from the Kingston ash spill. The leader of EPA's emergency cleanup operations says the removal of ash from the Emory River has now entered its final stage, but because dredging along the riverbed stirs up sediments and ash, 15 to 20% of that material will remain suspended in the water and then eventually settle back into the riverbed after the dredges move on. TVA's cleanup project manager says that does not contradict TVA's stated goal of leaving the area better than it was before that accident in December of 2008. In fact, he maintains water quality there will be better than it was before that accident took place. A major deal to report in the oil sector this morning. China's largest offshore driller, CNOOC, is buying a 50% stake in Argentinian producer Bridas for $3.1 billion. Bridas, in turn, owns a 40% stake in Pan American Energy, which is Argentina's largest crude oil exporter. The company also has oil and gas assets in Chile and Bolivia. China's oil and gas companies have spent at least $13 billion on acquisitions since 2008 as the nation scours the globe for resources. Back in August of 2005, you may remember that CNOOC dropped an $18.5 billion offer for Unocal. They had met resistance from U.S. lawmakers who were concerned that the takeover would threaten U.S. national security. Also overseas this morning, Russia and India now have a new nuclear power deal. This is an agreement that could lead to 16 new Russian reactors. The deal was among $10 billion worth of energy, defense, and space agreements between the countries. Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin met with Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh over the weekend in New Delhi. Now, Russia Industry agreed in the mid-1980s to build a 2-reactor station at Kudankulam on India's southern coast. After a spate of delays, though, Russia now hopes to finish the very first reactor sometime this year. Until last year, India was isolated from the international nuclear energy trade because of its weapons program, but a special deal brokered by former President Bush changed that. Russia now joins France in building new reactors for energy-hungry India and will also supply uranium for that country's existing power plants. So far, it has been a bit of a mixed bag for the U.S. government's Cash for Appliances program. In Minnesota and Iowa, for example, where rebates of $100 to $250 or more have been offered for new appliances, demand was so strong funds were used up in days. But USA Today is reporting that some websites crashed under the crush of applicants. That is not the case, however, in states like Georgia, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Less than 25% of the available funds there have been used despite offers and rebates over the last month. The difference may be the size of the rebates here. Although federal tax dollars fund the program, states set the rebate size and also eligible appliances. New York offers $75 plus at least $25 for recycling for refrigerators and washing machines. Georgia and Michigan offer up to $100 in rebates, but most states, including California, Texas, and Florida, some of the major states out there, they're launching their programs later this month, so more details certainly to come on that. South Korean battery maker LG Chemical is now planning a major car battery plant here in the U.S. That factory will be in Holland, Michigan, near Grand Rapids, and it will turn out enough battery cells for 50 to 200,000 vehicle battery packs. Half of the cells produced will go toward GM's Chevrolet Volt. LG Chemical expects the plant to be fully operational in 2012.
Our message is clear. The Center for Lithium-Ion Technology in North America is open for business right here in Holland, Michigan.
After all factors were considered, we chose Holland due to its well-developed infrastructure, skilled and talented workforce, as well as the sincere commitment of city officials and industry representatives.
Now, a boost here from the federal government. Nearly half of the building costs there in Michigan will be financed in part by a $151 million grant from the U.S. DOE. Well, as we kick off the work week here in Washington, we'll take a look at some of the events taking place around the Beltway this morning. 9 a.m. Eastern, the American Bar Association Spring began its meeting on climate change and understanding the legal issues. That takes place again, 9 a.m. Eastern in Northwest Washington. At 2 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, the International Green Building Code will be unveiled by the International Code Council. Clean Skies News will be watching for details coming out of that announcement. And finally, 3:45 this afternoon, the National League of Cities is holding meetings on energy efficiency and sustainability here in Washington. That's taking place at the Marriott Wardman Park. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu is scheduled to speak, and Clean Skies News will be on hand. That is this Monday morning edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us. You can reach our team here in Washington via email anytime at contact@cleanskies.com. You can also follow us throughout your day on Twitter and Facebook. For all of us here in the Energy News Center, we're glad you're with us. I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.